Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast, and as always, we have the most wonderful audience in the world and a guest as well. So thank you for participating for my audience. Remember, the podcast always gets funner near the end when we really get guests talking it up and all sorts of exciting stuff. So be sure to listen to the whole show, if you would, please. Be sure to refer the show to your family, friends, neighbors, relatives, dogs, cats, mistresses, pool boys. Get everyone involved in the show. We certainly appreciate you guys for being a part of it and listening in. Go to iTunes, Google Play, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss and patreon.com/Chris Voss. Be sure on YouTube to hit that bell notification button so you get all the notifications of Chris Voss Show and all that good stuff. I've got a wonderful guest, as always. In fact, I appeared last week on his podcast as well, Brian Basilico. He's an internationally recognized author of the award-winning and best-selling book, It's Not About You, It's About the Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World. Bacon. He's a speaker, trainer, and adjunct professor, and an online marketing strategist who brings over 40 years of marketing experience to his award-winning internet marketing company, B2B Interactive Marketing Incorporated. Brian is a syndicated blogger, podcaster, and sought-after guest expert featured in Entrepreneur and Inc. magazines, articles, radio shows, and his show, The Bacon Podcast on iTunes, was voted one of Inc. magazine's top 35 business podcasts. Top 35 business podcasts. Welcome to the show, Brian. How are you?
Hey, Chris, man, I'm doing great, dude.
Good. So the Bacon Podcast, like, who doesn't want bacon, right?
Vegetarians.
Well, yeah, you might have some vegan issues there with the vegan folks, but other than that, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But
no, everybody loves bacon, man. It's the second biggest shared thing on the internet. The first thing is kittens. Number 2 is bacon.
I was going to pick something else as the number one thing, but we'll leave that alone.
Yeah. Well, stuff you can share on Facebook. Let's go there.
That or stuff that you can do during the day. I don't know. Of course, for some people, it's all day.
That's right.
Anyway, so you were the Bacon Podcast. Give us some links so people can look up some of the stuff as we go through the show.
Sure. So baconpodcast.com, that's the easiest one. They can check out baconcoach.com. They can also check out b2b-im.com. That's my business website. Those are probably the 3 biggest ones.
Cool, man. I like how you got your shirt there with the product placement logo going on.
Of course.
There you go. Nice. I need a big sign behind me that says the Chris Voss Show, like in a banner or something.
I used to do this live video stuff because I know we're on video and on podcast, but I used to actually have a projection screen behind me with a bacon shower curtain. And it just got to be too much. And I was like, man, can you tone down the bacon a little bit? Yeah, it's too much. So
people are getting hungry during the show and wandering off.
Well, they were. They'd go down and microwave some, come back, you know. Which is completely wrong. You should never. I do not advocate microwaving bacon. No, it kills it, man. You got to cook it the right way. Crispy too, by the way.
You know, you ought to do your podcast live on YouTube. I remember years ago, I subscribed very early on to the gal who does My Drunk Kitchen. I forget her name, but she's really funny and she's a hoot. And I subscribed to her back when YouTube first reached out to her and decided to help make her a star. And because it was just funny. And she basically would just she prepares meals, for those of you who haven't seen it, while she gets drunk. And she's a very funny millennial-ish sort of person. And she's just funny as hell, and she gets drunk, which makes it even funnier. And of course, the whole preparedness of the recipe, whatever she's making on that episode, just becomes a shit show as the booze continues to feel her inebriation.
What was her drink of choice?
I don't remember. I don't think she cares, but I think it was wine mostly. I think she probably mixes it up, but it's just a hugely funny show. So what you ought to do is you ought to do a live show and video and like the whole time you've got sizzling bacon, like sizzle, you know, you should at least have like sizzling bacon as like a sound on your podcast, like the show start.
It is. It's already there.
Oh, man. Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I had my open done by a friend down in Florida, and that was the first thing he starts in, man, is the sizzle. Yeah. Got to have the sizzle, baby, because that's what it's.
Sizzle, baby. You sell the sizzle, and then during the show you serve the bacon, and like I don't know if you've ever seen this other guy's show. There's another guy's show where he makes his guests eat hot wings with hot sauce. And what they do is he does a whole interview, asking questions show with the star, and they have, I think it's like 6 bottles of hot sauce, going from just like kind of hot to like ghost pepper, fucking insane, burn your face off, clot off, sort of hot. And they have 5 to 6 wings that have been cooked in the sauce, and it becomes like an endurance marathon of fire in your mouth and sweats, and there's some people that start seeing things during the show. You know, it becomes like a peyote experience.
I believe it.
And so they're trying to answer questions during the show, and be able to eat the stuff. So maybe that's what you should do. You should do a show where you're serving bacon, and like the guests have to keep eating bacon as like a thing. Clearly this isn't going to work with our Muslim friends, but
no, it's not good with the Muslim friends, the vegetarians, but you brought up a really good idea. What I should do is I should go to breakfast places and just basically broadcast live from like really good breakfast places, you know, not McDonald's.
You're the bacon reviewer.
Yeah, like, could be.
We know an XYZ restaurant is good, but we want to make sure the bacon is. You could be the Siskel and Ebert of bacon reviews.
I tried. I mean, when I was doing my book, I reached out to everybody in the bacon community. I mean, farmland bacon, just everybody you could possibly think of, and nobody wanted to back the show or back the book. But you know, maybe now that it's, you know, much more popular, maybe they'll jump on board and start throwing some bacon my way in cash, you know.
But it's a great name. So tell us about you so that people can get to know you better, Brian, and everything about you.
Yep. Okay. I was born. No, I'm not going to go there. So the first thing that I ever did was I opened up a recording studio in my dad's basement. I had a band, and I kind of took the PA system and put a 4-track digital recorder, 4-track cassette recorder on this thing and turned it into a recording studio. And so I've been doing marketing and online stuff for, you know, since a long time ago. I've been in video production. I've been in audio production, did radio commercials. I mean, some of the crazy things that I got to do was work with Louis Farrakhan, Leon Sphinx, lots of Chicago sports stars, all that kind of, you know, funky stuff. And worked, you know, in and out of companies for years. I sold that one recording studio I had to another company, worked for them, went to work for Arthur Anderson. 2001, I said, I'm sick of this, man. I just want to do my own thing. So that's when I started this. And then, so the whole bacon book came about. You basically told the stories. Like I would go around networking in Chicago, and I started taking pictures because it was all breakfast meetings, you know. So I started taking pictures of bacon. And on plates and stuff like that, my friends are coming on Facebook saying, dude, you know, do you have a prepaid plan with your cardiologist and a really good life insurance policy? Because you're going to drop dead soon. You know, I said, you don't understand it. It's OPB. It's other people's bacon. You know, I was eating oatmeal. So, but that's how the book got named when I started writing it is, you know, people just said, man, it's all about the bacon, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's all about the bacon. And so when I started writing
bacon.
Yeah, it's got sizzle, baby. So, so I started writing this thing, and it was a how-to book on social media back in 2012 was when I started it. And by the time I got to the 3rd chapter, the whole book was obsolete. So that's when I decided, you know what, it needs to be a Y2 book, and that's why it's about relationship marketing. And the cool thing is even today, the principles in the book are still valid, you know, 4+ years ago. Or so it's you know, that's really where it all started, and from then it's been just a whirlwind tour. I've got another book that I've written recently called The Bacon System, which is sizzling hot recipes to grow your business. And that is about content marketing strategy. It's all the pieces of the puzzle, having a good website, understanding Google Analytics, content marketing, how to do blogs, podcasts, create ebooks, all that kind of stuff. It's basically building your brand using your own original content. So that's kind of the the general story.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And bacon, it's just, you can't beat that. I mean, it's either that or, I don't know, kitties or puppies on the internet. So it's a great thing that people do. So what do you find most people, I mean, you've got a basically consulting business too. What do you find most people are needing help with these days, or where you really help them?
Well, I think where people need the most help is understanding that, this is a process. This is not something that just you dive onto Facebook and all of a sudden you start posting things and you become rich. I mean, have you heard the story of Little Things happened this week? It was a Facebook group or page where they had like 58 million women following them. And because of the algorithms, it started slowing down their traffic, and they basically lost their entire audience and went bankrupt and laid off 100 people.
No, I didn't. It's called Little Things.
Yeah, called Little Things. And just look up Little Things on the internet. You'll find a ton of stories on it. That's the problem is that people don't own things like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and all this social media. And, what people really need is the ability to get the info in their heads out in some kind of format. I call it sticking a USB cord in the back of your head and trying to get that information out so that people understand your perspective on things. I mean, let's face it, there's never anything new on the internet. I mean, there's new platforms and things like that, but I mean, marketing concepts, man. I was doing content marketing in my dad's basement. What I did is I had an Atari 400 and I had a dot matrix printer, and I would type up stories about how to do audio recording for local businesses who wanted to do radio commercials and stuff like that. I would print it out on a piece of paper. I would cut it up literally with the scissors, and then I would tape it to an 11 by 17 page. I had a header, and I folded it over, took it to a printer, got it printed and shipped out to people. That was content marketing back in the 1980s. It's all the same stuff. It's just the platforms, the technology, that's what's changed. The concepts of writing great headlines have been around since Ogilvy. And, that stuff has never changed. And so really what people need to learn how to do is how to get that information out of their head. What makes them different? What makes them stand out? How are they better than the other mousetrap that's out there? That's really key.
It's pretty interesting these days. I was just looking over the article you were referring to, Little Things, a digital production publisher that was using Facebook. Yeah, it's for years I've told people you really don't want to build your business on other people's sites. It's nice to have a Facebook fan page and build stuff over there and promote it and all that good stuff, but you really need to build your business largely on your website and have control over it, because wow, that's crazy here.
Yeah, and that's just one of many stories that you hear all the time. That's just
for years I told my clients back during the Wild West, when everything was fresh and new, and everyone was trying to be the new Facebook and Facebook killer, and even Facebook was trying to be the new MySpace. I told my clients for years, there's all these ways that we have where I can game the system for you, and we can really rock and roll it, but you need to spend your money now with me to get as much what I call online real estate, claw up as much online real estate, as many followers, a big audience as you can, because someday it won't be free. Right. And on the Facebook front, I warn people, they're going to charge eventually. They're going to charge you to access that database. So keep that in mind, everyone who's going, we're going 1,000% into Facebook fan pages. And I warn people, I'm like, it's not going to stay free forever. Eventually, Facebook and Twitter are going to charge you for a lot of what I'm trying to do, and it'll probably cost still a lot more to pay for them, and that's very true today. And yeah, with the algorithm changes, the different things, You know, I know Facebook's on the skid, or not Facebook's on the skid, excuse me, Snapchat's on the skid. And there's a magazine that's on there called Arsenic. And I do believe they're on other platforms now, but they largely launched on Snapchat. And I've kind of been wondering how platforms like that, where they actually launched a magazine on Snapchat, are doing once Snapchat starts dying. But I think they've disseminated their different assets to where they're on all the major platforms as well now.
Right.
But you know, still, I mean, yeah, if you put the house on one of these platforms, you know, even Facebook, you know, it's a lot of people agree it's just a matter of time till something replaces it.
Right. Well, and they're all changing.
Nothing lasts forever, you know.
Yeah, they're all changing, man. I mean, the day that Microsoft bought LinkedIn, you know, that whole platform changed. I mean, I was teaching people a handful of years ago that Pulse was the thing, you know, that you would write articles and you'd put them up on Pulse. Now, if the people at LinkedIn and Pulse liked what you did, they would share it in a community. They would actually put it out to a, you know, advertising and marketing. I had one guy that was big into transportation and shipping. And I mean, he was getting seen by tens of thousands of people. His articles were getting just blasted all over LinkedIn. And then, you know, LinkedIn decides to pull the plug on Pulse after Microsoft bought it. And that whole, you know, stream of people that were finding what he was doing went completely away. So you got to figure out, okay, what's the next tactic? What's the next thing? But ultimately, and see, this is where I think it's really uber important. And we're not, I try to get people out of the mindset of, you know, developing content. It's not just developing content, it's developing assets. I mean, what are you doing? Where are you going with this stuff? And how can you take this stuff and build upon it in a way that's going to make sense? So an example, I'm going to give you a clear-cut example of what I do every single week. So this morning, you know, over the weekend, I got this idea. And it was, what does beer and social media have in common? And my answer to that is you rent them both, and if you mix them, they get dangerous. You know, and so that became a post that I put into LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn only allows you 1,300 characters when you put in a post. When you go in and actually do it as a post, as opposed to an article, your article can be just about any size. So you get 1,300 characters, and that includes your graphic is going to take up some. If you put a link, it's going to take up some. So I take that and write it. That forces me to get points across in a very small space. Now I'll take that and I'll put it on Facebook. I'll copy and paste it and put it on Facebook. Now that becomes the core of what I want to say in my podcast. So I take that one little post, and that becomes the outline for my podcast. And then that podcast is then sent to rev.com, where then it is basically translated, or not translated, but transcribed into a blog. So from that one germinated idea, I get posts on social media, I get blogs, I get podcasts and stuff that I can share all over the internet, and especially on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So it's basically creating a microsystem.
Huh, this is pretty interesting. I'm looking at rev.com. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's $1 a minute. And my podcast, when I chop off the beginning and end, it's 8 minutes. It costs me $9 a week to do that. And they usually ship it back within a couple hours.
My podcasts usually run on forever. They'll probably charge me double. They probably charge me twice for swear words.
They do. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you get a lot of forks because, you know, if you get somebody in the Philippines who doesn't understand how to swear, you know, you end up getting the wrong word.
Oh, seriously?
No, they're pretty good. They're usually American-based people, but I've rarely had stuff that wasn't like pretty much spot on. You still got to read it and kind of massage it a little bit. So I got a VA that goes through and proofs all that stuff for me too. So because I'm Captain Typo, dude. I cannot type. I can't type. I can't. That's one of the reasons why I love podcasting, is because I can talk. But I'm just not a good writer. It's never been. So all of my books have basically been talked into my word processor. It's just the way I do it, because it's the fastest, easiest way to get the USB in the back of my head onto something that, can be used. So.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's one of the reasons I started video broadcasting early on, is because I don't know where to put all the commas and shit.
Right. I'm with
I constantly get grammar Nazis at my door with torches and pitchforks. going,
Yeah.
You put the comma in the wrong place. I do use, I've started in the last year using Grammatically.
I use that too.
And they just came out with a Grammarly. They just came out with a thing you can put on your phone where the keypad is a Grammarly keypad. And it, you know, it goes, hey, stupid, you're misspelling crap again. Or here's where you should put the commas and shit. And then they do that.
Yeah, no, it helps. I mean, I've got it as a plug-in on my, I've got it on my desktop on my Mac. I have it on my Chrome browser. They have a plugin for that, an extension, and then they have it on the phone too. And that's still the free version, man. If you want, you know, if you want to supercharge it, you can pay X amount a month for it, like anything else.
Yeah, and what's nice is I like it because if anybody ever gives me shit, I just go take it up with Grammarly, asshole.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
don't blame the messenger, blame the software. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my problem, it's theirs. And maybe they know more than you because they're Grammarly. Who are you? Where's your fucking degree at, buddy? Huh?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. It's from FU University. That's where it's from. I'm a New Yorker.
Then if anybody really calls me stupid, I go, hey, man, I went to public school. I get it. So the podcast is doing pretty well. I mean, the baking podcast, you had me on last week. So everyone go check out that show so you can listen to it. It's highly entertaining. I think the week or so before you had Chris Brogan, who was on. Chris is a super nice guy. Just a brilliant dude. I think we talked about him in your podcast a little bit. A lot of respect for Chris Brogan. And in fact, I saw some pictures of him at
he was at Social Media World with Joel Comm and stuff like that. Yeah.
And so cool, man. So cool.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, this year I've been doing the podcast for 3.5 years, so roughly. And this year I decided to kind of take a slide in a different direction because, I mean, it's always been about teaching people. I believe that, you know, in 10 minutes you can learn something, you know, and I try to make them 10, 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes they go a little long, but that's okay. But I always want to give actionable items. I try to treat the podcast as if you and me are sitting at a Starbucks or at a bar, and we're basically just, you know, chewing the shit, and we're talking about, you know, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And when it's all said and done, you know, we're learning something from each other. Well, if we learn something from each other, the audience is going to learn something, you know? So that's the way I love it. But this year I kind of took a left turn a little bit, and I decided to focus on primarily two different kinds of people. One is thought influencers, and that is you, my friend, because Lord knows you influence a lot of people to buy a lot of stuff. You know, Chris was one of those people, but then also I'm interviewing CEOs of products that I actually use, you know, because everybody wants to get on a podcast, but I want to talk to people, you know, like this week I've got Evernote coming on. I've done Acuity scheduling. I'm shooting for Canva, and I'm using social media. I'm using LinkedIn to try to get a hold of these people. And it's working. You know, it's like I'm using LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast. Not only am I getting Evernote on my podcast this week, I'm recording them. It's not going to be this release this week, but I mean, they liked what I had to say so much. They interviewed me for their blog. You know, so it's that you've got to be able to use the stuff that you actually do on a daily basis in order to teach other people. Don't you agree, man? I mean, you can't just go out and learn something and just, you know, vomit information on people. You've got to have some kind of experience with it.
Blah, vomit information on people. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, being able to interact with them well. This year we made an adjustment to the Chris Voss Show. I used to talk a lot about technology and social media. And, you know, it's just, to me, I can't talk about some of the stuff any more than I already do. And so I opened, and plus I got kind of tired where I just felt like the audience, when they were going to be showing up, they would be showing up, you know, going, oh God, it's another show about phones or another show about technology, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm really over it. And so I thought, you know, I'd rather have a show where I can talk to people about everything and anything. And as long as we have great guests that bring wonderful stories that are amazing and cool and interesting, and and we can and no one knows what the show's going to be like. I mean, they know kind of, you know, who's going to be on the show, but they don't really know what the show's going to be about. And so I think that works a whole lot better for me, and it makes it more interesting for me too, because I don't know what they're going to talk about. I'm not going to have some guy coming on and going, yeah, we're going to do some AI shit, and
right.
Like, oh god.
Well, there's a million podcasts out there with formulas, man, and that's it. It just gets you listen to certain really big podcasts where they do the exact same show with different people, and it's just like, okay, here comes this segment, here comes this segment. There's nothing new and exciting about it. You know, it's what are you doing differently that's going to keep people's attention, or at least get them to start listening to your show if they've just discovered you, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've had some people on the show that have really interesting life stories. I think one of the extremes was a guy who came on, really nice guy who'd been struck by lightning. He talked about what that experience was like, living through it, and how it changed his life and his perception of everything. Certainly, I mean, you know, all jokes aside, when it comes to the irony,
right?
My life was changed by a lightning strike. He had some pretty amazing things, and as we've been doing the show with an all format, I mean, there's some things I don't get into. I've had a few people write me and go, "You want to talk about wrestling?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that." Yeah. You want to talk about country music? No, I don't want to. No, shoot me in the face, seriously. But just about anything else, I kind of can enjoy and tolerate, if you will, or be interested in some way, fashion, or form.
Yeah, you had an opera singer on one of the podcasts I listened to. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. She was an opera singer who I think translated it into a book or social media brand. And she used a lot of her lessons from being an opera singer, and the opera singer, you know, knowing how to tell stories in opera. You know, the same sort of thing can be applied to marketing and stuff. And so, you know, it's interesting. One of the interesting things about the podcast and listening to people on podcasts is kind of listening to what their journey is, where they came from, what they experienced, and how they use that experience to do what they're currently doing, and how it shaped and molded them. And to me, that's really interesting. I've always been a person like who's the CNN guy, King, interviewer, Larry King, where I've always been kind of a people watcher. I used to be a people watcher when I was a kid. And I've always wondered why people do what they do, what motivates them, why they believe what they believe. You know, you see people in life sometimes that really believe that there's little green alien men running around us, or maybe our politicians are all lizard aliens or something, you know. And I sit and study human behavior and psychology and go, you know, how did they get to that space, you know?
Right.
What you know, because you kind of have to wonder too, because you're like, am I going to wake up one day and believe in that Scientology?
Right.
How do I keep this shit from happening?
I've been down that road, man. I've read the book, you know, L. Ron Hubbard's book on Scientology. I mean, it's you know, it's crazy. When I was a kid, well, okay, so let's translate something. When I was 10 years old, I lived in upstate New York, and my dad worked at West Point Military Academy. He worked for AT&T. Back then it was New York Telephone, as a trainer. And so my first guitar instructor was a drill sergeant. Made for very interesting guitar lessons. But I've been a musician all my life. And so over the course of years, I studied things like orchestra. You know, it's like, why do certain instruments sound the way that they do, and how does all this stuff blend together? And then I got into, you know, studying the brain, the left and the right side of the brain. And I also read the book on Scientology. I've read books on, you know, just about every religion that you could possibly imagine, because, you know, I just want to know what their thoughts are. I want to see where they're coming from. You know, a lot of people just immediately say, hey, you don't believe in what I believe, so you suck. No, I just want to understand, you know, I want to figure that stuff out, because there's a lot of cause and effect in that. Well, through all of those things, and being a musician and standing up on stage, playing in front of 1,000 people, when I get up and speak, or when I'm teaching in a class in a college or something like that, and I'm speaking to an audience, there is zero stress, because basically it's either I have a mic in my hand talking about what I know, or I have a guitar in my hand playing what I've learned. You know, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's the same skill. It just translates differently, you know. So all of that experience has made me, I feel like, a better speaker over the course of the year.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's I was very lucky early on where I grew up probably as an introvert, but owning my own companies, being a CEO, constantly having to sell to employees, sell to investors, sell to board, you know, all that you're constantly selling, really, when it comes down to it. And so doing all of that just made me a big mouth. I ended up starting to do all of our company newsletters and everything, putting those out. And it just became a thing where I was such a big mouth and so used to it, never shutting the hell up. I'm sure people find me incredibly annoying. But
they're not your audience.
It just became a natural thing for social media for me.
Yeah, it's not your audience. If they don't care about what you're saying, man, it's just not your audience. That's fine, you know.
I don't think anyone in my audience gives a crap about what I'm saying. They just come here for the entertainment of stupidity, and it's some mindless distraction for them for the day, at least on my part, for what I'm delivering. and yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody who's in business, I mean, they got to ask themselves is like, and then sometimes it takes us a long time to figure this out, is what is your superpower? You know, what are you really good at? And try to figure that out. And what I've learned is I can turn geek speak into English. I could take some really technical stuff and I can basically look in the audience and dumb it down, you know, but also understand the reason why I'm dumbing it down for the audience, not just dumbing it down, you know. And so teaching and speaking have always been my superpower. And so I need to, you know, I've been focusing more on that, on educating people, on training people. That's what I love to do, and less on a lot of the other things, so that people can, you know, I can hire to those weaknesses. I always say sell to your strengths, work to your strengths, and hire to your weaknesses. And you just got to get to the point where you say, you know, I can have somebody else do this for me. Somebody can edit my podcast. Somebody can proofread my book. Somebody can do all this stuff, because people get, you know, they get cost avoidance syndrome, as opposed to understanding that they need to invest in order to make themselves better, you know?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
I mean, it's got to be that way in photography. I mean, it's like, yeah, you could take out, I've seen a dude take out a Polaroid and just make incredible images. There's an art to it. But man, then the same guy went out to Utah or something like that and took a camera with a telephoto lens, and it came back and told the story of how he shot the eclipse. You know, and it's like, that was his whole thing, is they went out to Utah to be in the whatever they call that line, you know, the perfect line where it comes across.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know, he went there and, you know, he bought a specific, or rented. He actually rented the telephoto lens to get the photos that he got. You know, so it's like, man, he knew the tools that he needed to do what he needs to do. But you know, it's not buying, you know, just because you buy a $5,000 guitar, it's not going to make it play any better. You know, it's spending time learning how to actually play the guitar. You know, I've heard people on $10 guitars sound better than people on $1 million guitars. You know, it's like just the way.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine. He had photos from a famous photographer in his house, and the guy had gone on a tour through Asia, and because of this was back in the 90s, and because some of the limits he had with, you know, battery packs and everything else. And, you know, taking cameras and of course getting them stolen possibly, but he literally looked for a camera that would fit in his shirt pocket. It had to run on like AA or AAA batteries so that he could buy them anywhere and constantly, you know, be able to have power. It had to be able to boot up within a certain amount of time very quickly, so that, you know, when he had a photo that he needed to take, it could boot up and be ready to shoot. And he used this camera to just take some of the most beautiful photos you would think were taken on, you know, some high-end Canon you know, camera that you spent $5 billion on. And it just was this little pocket camera he'd put in his thing, and that's when I gave up photography. I remember looking at the picture, and it was a great story, and I was just like, I quit.
You know, if you enjoy it, why? You know, it's like crazy.
Yeah, there's the fun part of it. Yeah, I love taking photos. I love trying to find the right frames. But sometimes it's hard when you see somebody who's like really good at it, has like a true talent to it. I've got some great friends like Thomas Hawk and Trey Ratcliffe, Ratcliffe, and they just have a talent for it. It's just off the charts. And
yeah. The guys I hang with, his name is Michael Barton and Tom Rouse. And Tom does, I mean, here's an example of a guy who's taken his passion and done such great stuff with it. Both those guys, man. Michael, it's Michael Barton Art is one. I don't know Tom's website, but Michael does some incredible photography. He owned a studio in my local town, and since then he's gone off on another tangent where he's actually building bass guitars now. He put a wood shop together, and he's building these incredible bass guitars and selling them on the internet, but still does photography. Now, Tom, he actually does boot camps, but what he does is he takes people to exotic places, and these are photography students. He'll take them like over to Ireland, and they'll stay in a real Irish hotel in an Irish town, and then they'll go out on the coastline and get pictures of old churches and stuff like that. And the whole thing is he's there to teach these people, and they pay big bucks to go, but he gets to go to all these exotic places, and people pay him to do it. You know, it's like he's figured out a way to turn his passion into a business.
Yeah, you get free travel. I know a few travel bloggers that have done that. They travel and do all their stuff, and yeah, it's all paid for. You gotta love it,
right? And he makes a living at it. You know, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're going to South by Southwest here at the end of the week on the 9th. We're going to do a big production there. We've got a bunch of sponsors we're going to be promoting, and what's really nice is they pay for us to travel. I always made the joke that basically they pay for us to go hang out and play with our friends at these events, because usually that's the one time. It's kind of funny. I have all my play friends, my play date friends. We always get together at these events because it's the one time we get to see each other, because we're just literally all around the world from each other, so we can't hang out. So it gives us like 1 week so we can hang out. And of course, having great sponsors that we can have sponsor us. And so what's nice too is they're all influencers as well. So our sponsors kind of get a free ride on, not a free ride, but they get a ride on all of our influencer friends and co-promotion and all that sort of stuff. So pretty cool that way. But yeah, having good value. Having something where it pays to go to an event and it's paid for is pretty darn nice. And then on top of that, South by and most events give me a press badge, so I never have to pay for a badge for getting into the event. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so you get paid to go hang out with your friends, and you get everything for free, and chances are somebody's buying you dinner and drinks every once in a while or whatever, you know. So it's like, yeah, that's sweet. That's the kind of business that you want to try to build if you can, you know.
You definitely want to be in that kind of business. But, you know, you do have to build an audience. There's a lot of work that goes into it when we're on the ground with our sponsors at South by or CES or NAB or one of these events. You know, we may have fun at night, but the rest of the time we're working with them. We're usually in lockstep with them on the ground. You know, some sponsors vary, but, you know, there is a mode of work to it. In fact, there's been a couple South bys where I've actually yelled at people who've gotten too, you know, they've partied a little bit too hard. And I'm like, hey, man, we're here to do a job. I mean, this is kind of fun, but there is also a job element to it, and we need to follow through with it. But, you know, it is fun. It's a fun lifestyle. You know, I mean, like you do, getting paid to speak and traveling, and you're like, wow, I just got a vacation. All I got to do is stand on stage for an hour or two and shake hands afterwards or before. And then,
well, that's when I worked for AT&T, they used to fly us out to NAB all the time because I worked in the video department. So it was a free vacation. We'd stay at, you know, the MGM or at Bally's, and, you know, I'd get to go spend time with my dad who lived out there at the time. And then we'd go to NAB and walk the show, find gear that we need to buy for the next year, and and a lot of times get invited to after parties and things of that nature because, you know, we were always, AT&T had a lot of money to spend, so we were pretty cutting edge. I mean, we're the first ones to get Avid editing and all that kind of fun stuff. You know, digital editing. We bought, you know, back in those days, man, it's amazing. You know, you take a cell phone today and the stuff that you can do on a cell phone. We had a character generator by a company called Chiron. I don't know if you remember if you ever heard of them or, but yeah. So Chiron, that was an $80,000 character generator. That's all it did. It, like what you have on your screen right now with Chris Voss and the Chris Voss Show. I mean, that's either a free program or like a $50 program. You know, it's like it was $80,000. They would send in the repair dude because this thing would constantly break. Because, and I went to a electronics school. My degree is an electronics technician. So they actually pulled these boards out, and they were all wire wrapped. You know, most of the audience has no clue what I'm talking about. But wire wrapped means that, you know, you get all these pins in there and they basically take a wire here and they wrap it down to here and they wrap it down there, and that creates the connection between the two. So what would happen as the thing heated up or cooled down or, you know, humidity changes, the way they'd fix it is they'd go around, they start tapping the boards with a screwdriver to fix it. And then they figure out which board was funky and then rewrap it and, you know, try to give it some connectivity and then put it back in the machine. And that's how it would work. And that's what their repairmen got paid to do, was tap boards and tighten wires. And it was like, you know, but you spend $80,000 on a character generator, people love you, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But then you have to pay for did you have to pay for the repairman on top of that?
Oh, it was AT&T. They bought a service plan, you know, yeah, we had $1 million in that studio, man. Back then, we had you know, beta machines, 1-inch tape machines. You know, my first job was actually they were moving from one location to another, and it flipped from left to right to left. So I had to rewire the entire studio, wire by wire. And so an average videotape player back then had like 6 inputs. You had video in, video out, and then you had you know, all these different syncing cables so that it could use a editing machine to actually rewind and get the tape queued up where you wanted it and stuff like that. So yeah, it was, you know, technology's come a long, long, long way. But the cool thing is, you know, I was able to experience all that, you know. Somebody was asking the other day, you know, what was your first quote unquote computer? My Atari 400, but it was more of a gaming machine for me, but I still learned how to do things. One of my favorite stories, man, is, you know, my dad, so I sit down, I get this magazine on my Atari 400 and I want to learn programming. So I actually sat down and typed out this whole basic program of the American flag. And that's all it did. Is it, like, in BASIC, it made the American flag come up on a television set because there was no monitors at that point. I spent hours doing it, and I realized I didn't have anything to save it on because you didn't have memory. I had to go buy to the mall a floppy disk drive. So I go to the mall to buy the floppy disk drive, and I come back, and the TV and the computer are off, and my dad says, "What? It was wasting energy." You know, that's the way that stuff works.
And it erased everything. Because it wasn't saved. Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, our first computer was a Commodore computer.
64 or 128.
Yeah. And yeah, if you lost power, you were screwed. And then it would save all your programs to like a cassette tape.
Oh, yeah.
Those of you who are millennials, you can Google that, find out what it is. And then that thing would move slow as hell recording the stuff because, you know, it was cassette tape. And so you just be sitting there, please save before the power goes out.
Right.
It was so insane. Like I do remember when I was a friend, I went with my friend to up to a college, and they had the new Apple IIe computers, or whatever, 2 computers. And he was showing me how to work them, and he had like these discs, and you put the disc in the floppy disks and save it, and if it was a big program you had to use multiple discs.
Right.
I remember saying to him, I'm like, this is really dumb. Like, why can't they make it so this crap is just in the machine? Like, why do I have to keep these stupid discs? And
Technology, man, it's the way it was. When I opened I was one of the first studios in Chicago to get a digital audio recording system.
Yeah.
All right. The computer, just the Mac computer back then, it was back when Scully was running the company and Jobs got booted out, and I had it was like a Mac 2C or something like that. And that computer cost $4,000. The software and the boards to go in it were another $2,000, and a 300 megabyte hard drive was $4,000. It was the size of this. I mean, it was the size of a book, and literally 300 meg for $4,000. Think about that, man. Now it's like 64 gig. You know, it's crazy how fast this moves.
I remember seeing a photo one time of IBM was loading to give to, I don't know, Hewlett Packard or one of their vendors, like a 5 megabyte memory system. And the thing is like the size of a truck.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, I mean, they got it on a crane and crap. And you're just like, wow. Nowadays, you know, that's nothing. And I can put it on a micro SD card.
Or the cloud. You know, I mean, the cloud wasn't around back then, you know.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's amazing what we can do. And what's interesting is we're still so angry at how limited our technology is. Like,
right,
won't load fast enough. It loads in 0.5 milliseconds, and I need 0.25 milliseconds.
Yep.
So, you know, you're just constantly frustrated with technology. My phone drops calls. I'm like, how does the phone still drop calls in 2018, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you know, it's interesting how we get spoiled with all of our data. Like nowadays, you don't even have to beat your children or punish them in their rooms with timeout or ground them. You just have to take the internet away from them, and then their lives are living hells. Yep.
It's like the mom who turns off the Wi-Fi connection to the whole house during dinner. You know.
Yeah, I do a lot of gaming and Twitch and stuff, and I've been on raids and team battles with people that they're like, I have to get off now, or my mom's gonna turn off the Wi-Fi, and you hear like the mom screaming, "Get off the internet! We're gonna turn off the Wi-Fi!" And then all of a sudden, they'll be like, "She's back in the room with the Wi-Fi. She's gonna unplug me any minute," and then all of a sudden they're gone. Just like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, anytime my brother, he's got my two nephew and niece, and anytime he wants to get them off the internet, you know, the threats of shutting down the internet, that's like the one thing that gets their attention nowadays. These kids are like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, what are you talking about, Dad?
Don't turn off the internet. In fact, I sent him one of the reviews that I did of one of these, you know, nice hubs that he can remotely turn off the Wi-Fi at any time from his phone. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, just hook it up, and, you know, don't be, or, you know, I've even seen kids that they have a Wi-Fi connection that's geared towards either consumption. Like, I can even show you one here that's really cool. This is the Disney one, the Circle.
Oh, wow.
And this thing you can actually set the amount of hours they'll spend on Facebook. You can set the amount of hours they'll spend on Instagram. You can create daily time limits for sites and apps. You can pause the internet. You can see what your kids are watching on the internet. You can filter stuff. You can give your kids rewards for more screen time. So if they do things or something, you can give them rewards, and you can set a bedtime. Because, you know, I constantly hear parents fighting with their kids over, get off the internet. And
right.
I just,
and like, how much is something like that? How much does that cost?
That's only $99. Disney did a hell of a job on it. I mean, they priced it rock and roll. And it's very feature rich. It may be one of the most feature rich Wi-Fi units that are out there. But, you know, I just have I always hear them fighting over, parents fighting over bedtimes and stuff with their kids. Get off the internet. I just, you know, another half an hour, Mom. Yeah. And I'm just, and, you know, they complain about being the bad guys. And I'm like, just set it so it turns off at 9 p.m. And then you set up two different, you know, you put the kids on the guest channel. And I remember seeing years ago, some guy hooked it up to where the guest channel. The guest channel for the kids, the Wi-Fi reset, the Wi-Fi password reset every 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
So basically, you've probably seen the post. There's a meme going around on the internet. It looks like a post-it sticker on a refrigerator that says, if you want today's Wi-Fi password, here's the chores that you need to do in order to get it, and you'll get it when it's done.
Yep. Oh, that's a great idea. Well, who would it?
Good at that. I'd just be like, and then meanwhile, mom and dad, we're on the main Wi-Fi on a separate thing with a separate password they can't get. So there you go.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But here's the thing. It's like 10 years ago. Okay, the iPhone came out actually close to 11 years ago. That problem didn't exist. Kids on phones, on social media, on all the kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff was not around 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you got Disney actually creating a $99 tool that helps families manage a problem that they have. I think that's and it's something that I'm old enough. Me and my wife, we have millennial kids, and so she had not too long ago she had a rotary dial cell phone, pretty damn close. She had a flip phone, and so when I got my iPhone 6, I gave her my iPhone 5 or something like that. So I finally upgraded her. And then I showed her, I said, okay, here's what you do. You hit Siri and you say, Siri, text Timmy, which is one of our kids. She said, okay, text Timmy. What do you want to say? How are you? Okay, do you ready to send? Yes, she sent it. And then all of a sudden I come up to my office and I hear this, holy shit. And I go, what's wrong? She goes, he texted back. She wouldn't hear from him for weeks. And finally, the kid answered, and now she figured out she could text the kids and they'll respond like that, You
got to communicate with them through their formats.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, that's how fast things change, and she finally got it. So
yeah,
good for her.
I have to send my kids news through Snapchat to get them to reply. What?
Makes sense.
I don't have kids, for those of you in the audience listening. And I would not send that to kids. So let's make that disclaimer. My judge and parole agent said I can't do that anymore anyway.
That's good. I'm glad you finally got out, dude, man. That's great.
Yeah. When I say kids, I mean 18 and older, of course, as well. That just got pervy. So anyway, it's a long way to go for a joke.
You're not in Kentucky, though, man.
That's true. The people in Mississippi and Alabama right now are going, well, it was good enough for Roy Moore.
Roy Moore, yeah.
So anyway, so what else do we need to know about you, Brian, before we close out the show? Anything else you want to plug, talk about? No,
not really. I mean, just have people. Here's the bottom line: people want to check out anything I'm doing, just Google Brian Basilico. It's BrianBasilico. You'll find everything. You'll find my books, my podcasts, my websites. All the stuff that I'm doing, interviews like this. And so if people want to check out some of that stuff, that'd be great. I'd love for them to subscribe to the Bacon Podcast like they subscribe to yours. Because I get to interview cool people like you, man, and then you get to interview me. So it's
well, that's not pushing on me being cool, but definitely having you on the podcast was awesome. So there you go.
Well, thanks, dude. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, it's the only way to really kind of get the big picture is to follow what I'm doing because it's changing so much. It's hard to keep up with this stuff, and I try to be somebody who actually goes in and learns the changes and then brings that to the forefront rather than somebody that regurgitates or vomits out stuff that, dude, make $1 million on Facebook with Facebook ads. You can have this nice car and this beautiful wife and this great house. Okay, cut. All right, now let's go home.
Yeah, most definitely. So everyone, be sure to check out Brian's podcast. I mean, Bacon. I mean, you can't argue with that, really, when it comes down to it. Maybe you should merge it with someone who has an eggs podcast. So bacon, you can call it Bacon and Eggs Morning or something. I don't know.
It'd be good. Yeah.
So thank you to Brian for coming by today. Thanks to my audience for coming by. We certainly appreciate you guys as well. You guys are the best audience in the world. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Be sure to subscribe and share the show, please, because you guys are such a great audience. I'm sure you have great friends and relatives and people that you know. So please share the show with them. Just grab their phone, subscribe to the podcast. they will thank you and love you forever, or maybe not. But either way, you'll be happy. I don't know. You'll be happy, and you'll dream puppies and kittens for the rest of your life if you do that. I promise. So, wow, I'm getting sued on this one for sure. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, hit that bell notification button. Go to iTunes, Google Play, and patreon.com/Chris Voss to support the show. We love you, all you guys. So be sure to tune in next time and follow the podcast for Brian and all of his stuff on the interwebs. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.